Hey everyone, today we're going to be speaking with Amber. And Amber is a young woman who had, since COVID a year ago, struggled with symptoms of worsening, pain associated with Ehlers-Danlos Syndrome, and new symptoms that are very POTS-like. Along with that, worsening bloating and histamine-related type of gut and food reactions. So I want you to see where she is today. And without further ado, here we go.
I got really shaky. I completely pale-faced, and I almost passed out at work. I didn't have a lot of luck with the professionals that I was seeing, the doctors that I was seeing. A lot of them think that it's just all in your head. All your labs come out great. I didn't really start noticing the effects until after I had COVID. Yep. And that's when I started getting a lot of inflammation, a lot of joint pain. That's when my panic attacks started, my anxiety started, the heart palpitations, the blood sugar crashes, everything. That's when everything started.
That being said, a lot of people don't realize that these are symptoms that are really common with things like POTS, postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome.
Hey everyone, my name is Amber. I live in Austin, Texas, and I am a barber. I've been cutting hair for about 7 years.
So you work on your feet a lot, let's just say.
Oh yeah, I work on my feet all day, 10 hours a day for 4 days a week usually.
And this is when we met a couple months ago. And I want to, can you share with the audience just where were you medically a couple months ago?
So a couple months ago, I wasn't doing too great. I was chronically fatigued and I had blood sugar crashes. A lot was going on. It's even hard to remember just because I feel so good now, but I had a lot of joint issues, joint pain, muscle fatigue. It was really hard for me to get through just a day of work. I felt like a shell of myself. It was hard to just, talk to my clients and cut their hair without feeling like I just lived in this fog. I felt like I was in a tunnel.
Well, I remember where you were a couple months ago, and some of the things that a lot of people that we're talking to, we work with, have a lot of heart-related type symptoms. And, regardless of what the diagnosis is, can you share a little bit about some of the heart palpitations, whether it's high heart rate, low heart rate, blood pressure changes, or dizziness? How much of that were you getting?
I was having the issue before I actually joined the program. Back in the summer of last year, I was experiencing a lot of heart palpitations, a lot of anxiety. And I think a lot of it had to do with probably blood sugar issues. Just because whenever you experience your blood sugar crashing, first off, when you first experience that, it's a really weird feeling. You don't really know what's going on at first, but it doesn't feel good. And then you start to kind of freak out a little bit. You start panicking. And that triggers a whole bunch of other symptoms like, high heart rate. And I noticed that caffeine was a big trigger for me.
Well, how many times were you to the emergency room? How many physicians or specialists have you seen to try to figure out what this problem even was?
So there was one time where I was at work working on a client, and he just happened to be a type 1 diabetic. And I was asking him, I was picking his brain. I was like, what do your crashes feel like? What do your highs feel like? What do your lows feel like? And as he was telling me what his highs and lows felt like, I got really shaky. I completely pale-faced. He knew exactly what was going on, and I almost passed out at work. And so that was really scary because that was the first time that had actually happened. That was last April. And so it was really scary, and he actually had to go to Trader Joe's to buy me a juice to bring my levels back up. I ended up going to urgent care after that.
That being said, a lot of people don't realize that these are symptoms that are really common with things like POTS, postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. You also, before this, you were already diagnosed with one known autoimmune or immune issue. You were diagnosed previously with Ehlers-Danlos Syndrome. Am I right with that?
So I was diagnosed in October.
Mm-hmm. And so you were diagnosed with an autoimmune joint-related syndrome, and that was related. To a lot of people, they're like thinking that's separate from some of these POTS-related type symptoms with the dizziness, the brain fog, the vertigo, the heart rate stuff, right, and blood pressure stuff. And so, question for you is: did you connect the pain or joint problems that you had with the autoimmune Ehlers-Danlos syndrome with any of these other POTS-like symptoms? Did you make that connection?
I was trying to. I didn't have a lot of luck with the professionals that I was seeing, the doctors that I was seeing. Most doctors, especially in the Austin area, aren't really familiar with Ehlers-Danlos Syndrome. And so, you know, a lot of them think that it's just all in your head. You know, all your labs come out great. You're fine.
Normal.
I just didn't have a lot of luck. And I didn't really know it was all connected. I just know that I knew that that's what I had because I experienced every single symptom that was possible. And my mom actually has RA, so she already has experiences with
rheumatoid arthritis, right? We're using a lot of acronyms. A lot of people call Ehlers-Danlos EDS, right? And a lot of people call rheumatoid arthritis RA, and a lot of people call all these heart, head type symptoms postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. We call it POTS. So really, like Ehlers-Danlos EDS, rheumatoid arthritis, both of those are in the autoimmune families. So Amber, what you're saying is there's already a family history of autoimmune issues going on before all the POTS symptoms started. Mom had rheumatoid arthritis, you had EDS. Am I right?
Yes.
So that led you down an autoimmune journey dealing with the pain, the hypermobility, those joint type symptoms. And you were just recently diagnosed with EDS, and then the POTS symptoms started to really rev up. Is that the timeline?
To start from the very beginning, the timeline was I had COVID last January, and that's kind of when everything started. I guess COVID triggered autoimmunity or something. I mean, I've always had the EDS just because that's a genetic issue, but I didn't really start noticing the effects until after I had COVID. And that's when I started getting a lot of inflammation, a lot of joint pain. That's when my panic attacks started, my anxiety started, the heart palpitations, the blood sugar crashes, everything. That's when everything started.
I think we should have probably started this interview with that beginning, the starting timeline of this, because what I see a lot is people with long haul. You know, people get COVID, people get long haul, and that is the triggering event that then starts worsening immune stuff, like autoimmune stuff. Like you said, you definitely had EDS, Ehlers-Danlos with the joint issues, even as a young kid from genetics, and it just kind of gets worse over time. But sometimes your mom's journey with the rheumatoid arthritis will help you start to make the diagnosis and connections. Maybe this has to do with my immune system. But so many people, and you saw it in the program, how many people with underlying autoimmune issues that they knew about or didn't know about had then a trigger like COVID or long haul that then made that worse and added new symptoms to it. That's a really common picture that tens of thousands of people in every state are experiencing. Like, you weren't the only one.
I know. That's what I've witnessed being in the program.
Well, and what kind of specialists did you see? After that timeline, what type of different specialists? You said you went to urgent care. What other specialists did you go see with this?
So I went to urgent care. I saw a functional medicine doctor. I saw an allergist, an immunologist. I saw an ENT. I saw, let's see, I'm losing track because there were so many.
Did you ever see a radiologist, a neurologist, psychiatrist?
I hadn't made it that far yet.
So all the gists that you saw, right? What do you think, like, and you were told with all these specialists that your labs were normal. So you didn't really necessarily even qualified for a diagnosis of long haul POTS or dysautonomia, but it doesn't matter. I mean, you already know you had the Ehlers-Danlos autoimmune issue, but you knew that there was a major, something else since COVID has happened where it really impacted everyday life. Your quality of life started to really dwindle in the ability to take care of things.
Oh, yeah. Very much so.
Why do you think that none of them were able to solve this problem with you?
I just lack of experience, lack of knowledge.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And you saw a natural functional medicine doctor. Was that an MD or was that a naturopath?
So she was actually a nurse practitioner. She was able to help me more so than others. We actually did a pretty extensive blood panel. And that kind of showed me that I was chronically low in a lot of, key vitamins like vitamin D, My B vitamins, my omega-3s, a lot of that was pretty critically low.
Right.
So that's kind of when I started supplementing for all of those things.
Well, and the question is going to be too, a lot of functional or natural medicine docs will identify that there are deficiencies, right? And the answer to is just take more of this, like take 5, 6, 7, 8, or 10, 20 supplements. Did it help and did it solve the problem?
Nope, because I was still on a journey. I was still trying to find answers because I was still having the blood sugar issues. I even brought it up to her that I thought that COVID might have had something to do with me not being able to tolerate caffeine anymore, because whenever I would drink caffeine, that would automatically trigger a panic attack and it would trigger a high heart rate, even though I've been drinking caffeine since I was little. I don't know what really changed, but she said it was the first time that she's ever heard of it, and she didn't think it was related.
100% related. You know that. You've seen that. Because I love working with people with these types of mystery box symptoms, but also dealing with long haul autoimmune issues, POTS. These are all related. And we haven't even mentioned other symptoms that could be related with it, like with mast cell, histamine, food reaction type problems. But the central problem is even a functional medicine doctor may not realize that these are all connected. And what is the connection, right? It feels like you in your body knew intuitively, oh, there's a blood sugar, something with blood sugar is related to this. Intuitive, you knew the caffeine, my reaction to it is different after COVID. What's the connection between long haul, caffeine consumption, and all these symptoms now? And she said, oh, it's not connected or related. And I can give a little piece of awareness for people out here. And for you, this is one of the things you learned was there is super infections. Okay. For example, like long haul, that change what's called our nervous system, our immune function, but also our nervous system. So there's an impact on our nervous system, which has the parasympathetic nervous system, which is to calm, rest, digest, and our sympathetic nervous system, which is to fight or flight. Normally, every single day, as we go through different activities in the day, there's a balance between the two of those. Certain type of activities will need a little more of the sympathetic. Certain types of activities will need more of the parasympathetic. When you get long haul, which is a super infection, it loves to also infect and affect the nervous system so that certain parts of the nervous system go nuts, like the sympathetic nervous system, right? And the problem is that none of the doctor specialists that you are seeing, whether it's a cardiologist, allergist, right, or infectious disease, they don't understand what's the impact of those things, or cardiologists, right? The impact of those things on this nervous system balance, right? And between the parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous system, guess what makes this better or worse too? You mentioned it, blood sugar. She realized, she was like, wow, when my blood sugar is swinging up or down, it can impact the nervous system. Well, it does. So, and I know it's connected, but out there, the doctors up to this point didn't know it was connected. So let's talk about that. The lack of connections out there that doctors have training in, whether it's regular doctors, specialist doctors, or functional medicine doctors around these connections. What was the impact of that on your life? What were you not able to do? How did it impact on your life? Let's say 6 months ago, where were you?
Well, I'm naturally a very active person. I used to weight train. I would go hiking. Me and my boyfriend would walk around our neighborhood, at least 2 to 3 miles every single night after I got off work, which was a 10-hour day. So I was very active. And then as soon as I hit COVID, I didn't have energy for anything. I could barely make it through my work day. It was so crazy because I did not feel like myself. And it's hard to even explain because some people didn't even realize that I was struggling with it. But on the inside, I knew I thought that that's how I was going to be for the rest of my life. And I wouldn't accept it. I was trying anything and everything to find answers because I knew that this wasn't, I'm not going to accept that this is going to be who I am for the rest of my life.
So this is a really common problem that feels like some rare unicorn illness, but is so common. And it's a common pattern that's really missed out there. And we already highlighted the fact that doctors just don't have the training to really understand the connections, how they're connected. And also going off to certain specialists or even to urgent care or ER over and over again doesn't solve the problem. And my question for you you're just a couple months later. Where are you now?
So now, I'm practically symptom free. I rarely have anxiety. I have a few days where I'm a little anxious, but nothing like I was. I never have heart palpitations. My blood sugar is very regulated most days. I do have a few days here and there where I notice it more, but I don't have any crashes like I used to. I can't really feel when it drops or when it gets low like I used to. I don't have any brain fog anymore. There's no brain fog. I sleep way better. I used to have issues with sleeping, but now I can sleep and I sleep harder and deeper.
I think the first time we met, you were laying on your couch, not sitting up and I wasn't really laying on the couch.
I laid around a lot, actually. I just didn't have the energy. I was chronically fatigued. I mean, I would get home from work and I wouldn't even eat anything. I would just crash and have to take at least a 30-minute to an hour nap just to feel somewhat normal.
I remember that, Amber, just maybe 3 months ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember that, Amber, too.
Well, and you mentioned like this, you and your boyfriend and your lifestyle and activity and your work. What do you think has, like, I can see like all these physical changes in you right now, right? How do you think this has impacted your relationships?
I think I've been a little bit of an inspiration because a lot of people did notice that I was struggling. My boyfriend especially, just because we live together, and he knows that I'm usually the go, go, go type person. And I just, there's no rest for the wicked. But there was none of that. I mean, I became so introverted. I just never had energy to go anywhere or do anything. I didn't even want to go to the movies, even though it was just sitting there.
Yeah.
And so he was kind of relieved whenever I started to act like myself again. And even just a few weeks ago, I was having jaw pain, because I was just smiling and laughing so much that my jaw muscles haven't felt that much, intensity in months, because when you don't feel good, there's not really any joy in your life. So,
wow. What's one thing that you can do right now that effortlessly that 3 months ago felt impossible?
Oh man, there's so many things. Get through a day of work and not be tired afterwards. That's the big one. I can now go on, a mile, 2 mile, 3 mile hike, and I don't feel completely exhausted afterwards. I can play pickleball with my friends and not just feel beat the rest of the day. So, there's so many things.
When after your parade of specialists that you saw in urgent care visits, right? Well, what made you actually decide to look, to connect with us? What stood out to you initially?
I don't know what you would call it, but I like to learn. I'm a very curious person. Mm-hmm. And so I'm just always on YouTube. I'm always watching YouTube videos. I'm always on podcasts, and I've always been interested in health and wellness. And so I'm just constantly learning things. Mm-hmm. And I don't really remember how your videos popped up, but I was probably searching or just researching POTS or, some type of long COVID or something. And that's probably how your videos popped up. And I probably watched more than half of your videos before I even reached out.
That's great.
So I watched so many of your videos and I just binged them.
Well, and like you mentioned, like you inherently knew blood sugar had something to do with it, but you're told there's no connection. That wasn't the problem. And you're like, I know it's the problem. And I love the fact that we actually explain in minute detail working with you, using your data to show you why it is really the problem.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. Another question would be like, what do you think was the biggest surprise? Biggest aha or surprise? What was some big mystery that you didn't know or big connection was a big solution for you?
I think the biggest surprise for me would be going gluten-free. I didn't realize that food could have that much of an impact on your body, which it makes sense when I say it out loud. But before you know these things, you don't really think much about it because we really just kind of eat for pleasure these days. We don't really eat for nutrients or to fuel our body.
Is it just going gluten-free? Was there a lot more to it? Because a lot of people just say, oh, I'll go gluten-free and I'll solve POTS. or long haul. Was it just going gluten free, or was it way bigger than that?
No, going gluten-free was what kind of relieved a lot of my fatigue and my joint pain, but I still had a lot of bloating and, GI issues, and I still had blood sugar issues. I think it was the whole food mapping, the food sensitivities. I didn't realize how many things I was eating on a daily basis that my body was very sensitive or intolerant to.
And how it fit together. Like, there are all these other pieces, where people are just like, oh, it's just about food sensitivities. Oh, it's just about going gluten free. And I'm like, no, those are pieces of the puzzle. And there's actually a bigger picture involved. We didn't mention how that impacted on blood sugar, digestion, your other labs that were all low. We haven't even mentioned a lot of other things like hormones. I mean, I can go on and on. That being said, I'm going to ask you something. What would you say to, cause just in Texas alone, there's probably 10 to 20,000 Ambers going through this right now. If you were talking to Amber from 6 months ago, what would you say to her? What would be your advice for her?
My advice would be to not give up. You're not crazy. It's not in your head. There is someone out there, aka Dr. Maggie, who can and will help you, who knows what you're going through, and you will feel normal again. There's hope.
What do you think? Because this was starting to, you said you worked through it, but this was going to and was starting to impact on your ability to work, but also outside of work. What do you think this experience, this turnaround has been worth to you and people you love? What has this been worth to you?
It's priceless, honestly. Health is wealth. And if you don't, I'm 30 and I felt, people kept telling me, you're too young to feel this way. You're too young to have these problems. But why was I having these problems? This is the oldest I've ever been, but it's the oldest. I felt like I was 60. Health is wealth and it's priceless. And I probably would pay any amount of money to feel normal again.
I think you feel way better than normal.
I think I do too, actually. I think that's probably the best I've felt in years. Didn't even realize it.
I love that. Do you think when you say you haven't felt this good in years, can you put a number of years? How long do you think it's been since you felt this good?
Maybe ever. I don't know. I really wouldn't be able to tell you how many years that I thought I felt good. But in reality, I didn't. I didn't feel good. I didn't feel good on my body. I didn't have stable energy. I have stable energy now. I can actually, I wake up feeling refreshed, and I haven't done that in years. It would take me a long time to get out. I thought I wasn't a morning person because I just never wanted to be awake in the morning. But yeah, I just have stable energy, and I don't crash in the middle of the day anymore. It's incredible.
Congratulations. Thank you. And thank you for sharing this with everybody. You're an inspiration, not just for your clients and for people that you're close to. There's going to be tens of thousands of people who are going to watch this. Thank you for being, I call it like mom had rheumatoid arthritis and autoimmune, and you had Ehlers-Danlos and then long haul and POTS-like symptoms, right? But the thing is, you're the generation breaker. Who doesn't want to be the generation breaker that says, oh, it's not that I'm doomed or something. It's why not just look at this and be like, I want to know how to fix this. I want to do something about it. And some people think that it's never going to happen, or it's going to take a long time for that to happen. How quickly did this turnaround happen for you?
Oh man, it happened a lot sooner for me than for some people. I was only dealing with a lot of these issues for about a year since I had COVID. And I know a lot of people experience these issues for decades. And I feel really bad for those women who go through that. But like I said, I refuse to accept that this is who I am now. And I knew that it wasn't normal. And so I was just going to keep going until I could find answers.
So once you started working with me and my team, how quickly were you able to get results? How quickly did the brain fog, fatigue, or heart rate changes or gut symptoms resolve?
So those are tricky because you experience those things and then you'll go a few days without experiencing it. And you're like, wow, I didn't even realize that I didn't have brain fog the past few days. I don't know when it stopped, but it stopped. And so I would say within, a week or two is when I started noticing subtle changes. But now, I mean, I think I started the program early December, and most of my symptoms are gone. Most of them are gone. So very quickly.
Boom. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amber, for joining us. And thank you for being an inspiration to those around you and many others.
Well, thank you, Dr. Maggie, because without you and your knowledge, I don't know where I'd be. I'd still be searching the internet for answers.
What an inspiration Amber is to people around her and everyone who's watching this video. If you want to learn more around how to turn around long haul, autoimmune related issues, POTS-like symptoms, mast cell or histamine issues, just comment in the comment section below, help. And we have multi-part training series around POTS and long haul and how to turn that around. We also have training series around food sensitivities and mast cell related issues, histamine issues. So just type help and chat with us. Because this is a solvable problem, as Amber just showed you. And I would love to learn more about what's going on with you. So have a great day.